So we will call the meeting to order. It is 4:05. We have Jim Garanitis, Dan Bathlon, Laura Kemet as members. We've got Deb Petty, our planning agent, and we have, oh my God, Mr. Sheffing. I'm sorry, I forgot your first name because I'm trying to look at the agenda at the same time. Okay, so I think in the interest of time, because we've got you here, I think we'll take things out of order and talk about the update on the local rapid recovery planning grant. And I know you had some plans to maybe circle back with other stakeholders and that type of thing, but I don't know, Deb, did you have anything you wanted to say, or did we just want to turn it over to Phil?
I think, Phil, I mean, there's a couple where and I'll put up the agenda in just in 1 minute, but we have Phil, I probably should make you, do you want to be a co-host, Phil, as well? Oh, well, I'll do that. We've got this outreach meeting. I don't know if you guys are aware of that we're going to do on the back of the selectmen's meeting on June 1st. Phil has some survey results, or I'll share them. I don't know if he's prepared to do that. And then we're talking about the stakeholder interviews. So that's kind of where I was with my local rapid recovery grant, and I wanted to share it with you. But Phil was kind enough to offer a few minutes, so I just thought you guys would have the opportunity to ask him questions and find out where he's at with everything. So I'll turn it over to you, Phil. And if you need anything from me, I'm here. I can post it up on the screen.
And Phil, just by way of kind of laying this up for the few people that might decide they want to watch our meeting, you know, at 3 a.m. on a random weeknight, you know, can you kind of tell us, you know, what the local rapid recovery planning grant is, what it covers, and then sort of, you know, lead into the rest of what you were going to discuss?
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to join your meeting today. I appreciate it. My name is Phil Shafing. I'm an associate and a senior urban designer and planner with Stantec. We are a design and engineering firm with an office in Boston and South Shore and throughout Massachusetts and New England. We're serving as Hanson's plan facilitator for this program, which means that we are essentially working with the town to develop this rapid recovery plan through a grant that has been provided by the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD. And so this is a large statewide program that DHCD launched late last year with the application, and the projects have all gotten underway as of early April. So we're in sort of kind of wrapping up the first third of the process. But what this program is, it's the RRP, or Rapid Recovery Plan Program, which I mentioned is a grant program for planning process to focus on downtown and commercial areas in towns and cities across Massachusetts. So there's over 120 communities of all different sizes that are participating in this. Hanson is one of those communities, and we're focused for the study area on the stretch of Main Street, kind of on either side of the commuter rail station. So that's kind of our focus area, looking to take advantage of that transportation connection and the existing businesses that are there to develop some recommendations to help improve that as a business district within the town. And the overall goal of this planning grant program is to help develop an actionable project-based recovery plan to help overcome some of the particular economic challenges from the pandemic and COVID, as we are, you know, hopefully starting to emerge from this and get back to being able to be out more and, you know, patronize businesses, things like that. Looking to take advantage of that to help support the businesses, you know, particularly restaurants and retail that were really hard hit during the pandemic, but extending to any, you know, business within the study area. So, you know, developing a sense of what the needs are in that particular area, and then a set of project recommendations that are responding to those needs to help help those local businesses there and help that area as a business center. I can provide a link to the program after this meeting, if that's helpful. There's a website that DHCD has that has some more information, so that might be helpful for people. In terms of the overall schedule, this is a pretty quick moving planning process. The final plans will be submitted to DHCD by about mid-September. So right now we're wrapping up the first phase, which is kind of the identification of needs and challenges and opportunities in the district. There is a business survey, which I'll cover the results of in just a moment, and some other data collection. I can share some of the high-level findings from that. And then at this point, we're starting into the second phase, which is really the heart of the project, developing a set of project recommendations. And I'll talk about some of the areas that those will be in just a moment. And then later this summer, mid to late July is when we'll start developing the draft plan, sharing those preliminary recommendations to get any feedback on those before we finalize the plan by mid-September. So there are 6 main areas that DHCD has asked us to focus on in this process. The first is public realm. So those are things like streets, sidewalk improvements, street trees, anything that sort of falls within the public realm that helps to, establish a safe, walkable, inviting commercial district. The second area is private realm. So that's now looking at the individual buildings that make up the study area. So looking at storefronts and building conditions in particular, and what are the needs and what sort of programs or incentives or design guidelines or standards need to be developed to kind of help those. The next 2 are kind of related to the small businesses within the district. One is focused on revenue and sales for businesses, and the other on the overall tenant mix of the district. So those are, potentially programs like technical assistance to help get businesses online, establish an effective online presence, helping to better understand the customer base, who they are, where they're coming from, what are the characteristics, looking at the overall mix of businesses in the study area and how well those complement each other, and if there are gaps where particular businesses might be recruited to help strengthen that. And then the last 2 areas, one is administrative capacity, and that includes both regulatory, so looking at zoning and permitting processes, and then just kind of how is the district organized, if at all, and what are the strengths and weaknesses of that, and may there need to be a different approach to that. And then finally, cultural and arts, which is really sort of events and things that can highlight the district, attract people here, potentially, work with local artists, local vendors, things that would just kind of add a different element of life to the study area. So that's kind of the quick overview of the process. I'll pause there to see if there are any questions. And then next up, I can just quickly go through some of the results from the business survey and the data collection that we've done so far. So are there, any questions in terms of the program itself?
Mr. Karanitis, anything from you?
No.
Okay. Mr. Bathlon?
Thank you for all that, Phil. I was just kind of wondering if you've had any successes recently with this type of grant and maybe other small towns, or is this kind of a newer project for your group?
We have done similar work to this, not specifically COVID recovery, but kind of downtown commercial district improvement. We were involved in a series of projects in upstate New York called the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, which was a state-funded program there, focusing on, uptown or upstate downtowns that, for the most part, were kind of struggling to get by but had a lot of opportunity there. So to us, that's pretty similar to this. And we think, the opportunity here to take advantage of the commuter rail station and to kind of build up around that is an interesting, opportunity, and hopefully a chance to support some of the businesses that are there, potentially attract some new ones. And so we're looking forward to being able to work on this.
And Phil, what type of time frame could we expect support from you? So, you're doing your analysis, you're going to do your proposal, but obviously implementation, some things may take longer than others. And, is it would just sort of cut off at a certain point, or can we, obviously I know it's not going to be in perpetuity, but I mean, would we expect, 6 months or, 9 months, and what does success look like, and how do we measure success? What are the metrics for measuring success?
Those are great questions. In terms of the grant itself, that will run through essentially the completion of the final planning document, so mid-September. And what we will be doing with the project recommendations that the DHCD has provided us kind of a template that we'll complete for each of the projects. And key parts of that are, immediate next action steps. Who are the responsible people? What are potential funding sources? What are the potential risks facing the project? And whether that is just the capacity of the town or the business district to implement the changes, that may be a very significant one. So those project sheets will identify all of those. And then, it really is, in terms of our role as plan facilitator, that's where our role will end. But part of what we'll be doing during this process is to think about implementation and what can be done given, the current constraints, the current administrative capacity to do those. And so, that's why it's great to be meeting with you as people who will be staying on here longer. We hope that this plan can be a roadmap for you, position, the town and others to be able to apply for grants, to have a roadmap forward that says, here's what we want to do in the next 6 to 12 months, and here's what we hope to do over the next, 3 to 5 years. And hopefully that will provide a bit of a structure to help guide decision making and grant applications and things like that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Anything else? All right. So in terms of the business survey, and it looks like I can share my screen here. So this is a summary report that we received of the responses to the business survey. This survey was part of the program that DHCD asked all of the communities to complete. The survey was put together by another consulting firm, Fine Point Associates, who does this, that's their specialty. And it was the same survey in all 120 communities because they wanted to be able to compare results across them. And I would say, my firm is serving as plan facilitator for a number of communities, and the number of responses kind of was all over the board. But I would say, given the size of the South Hanson village down by the commuter rail station, 7 responses is not a lot, but it is really useful feedback from us to have heard from these 7 respondents. And it's not, and it's partly then the importance of being at this meeting, engaging with a few other stakeholders along the way, this public meeting that I'll talk about a little bit later, that will help provide more information. So quickly here, essentially the survey was trying to get a sense of what are the impacts of COVID for these business managers or owners, and what was their view on, potential improvements or programs that DHCD was kind of looking at. So unsurprisingly, most respondents saw a decrease in revenue over the past year, less foot traffic over the last year. None of that is surprising. The biggest impacts were decline in revenue, reduced hours, business closure, either temporary or permanent. The next couple, this was where the survey was asking for satisfaction with these different elements of the commercial district. And you'll see that for the most part, the responses were sort of somewhat to, either neutral or somewhat dissatisfied, whether that's with public spaces, streets, and sidewalks. There are not a lot of sidewalks around the commuter rail station today, so that's not surprising. Conditions of private buildings and storefronts, again, there are a couple of, pretty prominent buildings that, at least from the outside, need a lot of work. And so that shows up here. More positive view in terms of safety and comfort for customers and employees, and then sort of neutral on these other two.
I'm honestly surprised that the condition of private buildings, storefronts, and signs isn't completely in the red. I'll be just honest with you. I'm really surprised. I think people were being kind, or you got them on a good day.
That could be, and it could also be, which end of Main Street they're on, because
Fair
down
enough.
by,
Yep.
Lockwood, they actually do have that fairly new building, which is right up on Main Street there.
Yep.
And so there are some there which are a little better condition than the former Ocean Spray building or the, some of the other ones. Regulatory environment, generally, no major issues from the viewpoint of these 7 respondents. The next set of questions then asked for, kind of relative sense of importance among some potential strategies that sort of fall into those 6 categories I mentioned. And, for the most part, kind of the most support for renovation for storefronts and buildings, so tying to that private roam component, and then streetscape and sidewalks. And then a little bit less support for, public transit bike users, because at least, from a biking standpoint, there doesn't seem to be a lot of use of Main Street for that purpose. But I think there is an interesting opportunity to try to tie the commuter rail station to at least the immediate station area, the short walking distance on either side, as potentially a place that, could host some uses that might support commuter riders, whether it's a morning cup of coffee like the Dunkin' that's there today, or, something in the evening, that's a potential business opportunity there.
I mean, I think those results are probably what we would all have intuited they would be, which is, please help us fix up the storefronts and get us some sidewalks. I mean, so it's good that that's validated. I just wish we had a larger sampling, and it wasn't for lack of this group trying, because we literally went out and pounded the pavement and passed out the surveys. But okay, that's great.
And then this next one is more focused on kind of the business side, with the most sense of importance for, interestingly, kind of recruitment programs to attract additional businesses here. Marketing strategies for the commercial district was another big one. And so, those are 2 things that, again, it's, a small sample size, but might inform some of our thinking about what could be done to help support the area around the commuter rail station.
And so, Phil, do you ever do like a, and I don't know what this looks like in like a COVID world, but say pre-COVID world, like almost like a town hall where you would have, you'd have some citizens, you'd have some businesses, you'd have some public, officials, and there would be sort of a brainstorming type of a session. I don't know if you're going to get to that, and I'm stealing some thunder, then just let me know. I'm not sure. But, would you ever have that type of a, all hands on deck kind of a brainstorming session to solve some of these, tough nuts?
Yes, absolutely. And not quite I think what you're describing is a little more of a detailed kind of work session, but we do hope that this public meeting will be able to get enough, residents, hopefully some business owners from this district, as well as, some of the selectmen and, planning board members and others to participate, that it can be a little bit of a working session. We'll, present some of this background information, but then we do want to have time to have a discussion about, what are some of the big challenges here? What do we see as opportunities for this area? And so hopefully that will help us as we think about potential strategies here to find some ideas that have, some support and people feel a need for. So hopefully this public meeting, if we're able to promote it and get a reasonable sized turnout of people who are willing to kind of participate and share some ideas, that might be a great opportunity to do some of that thinking together about the district.
That's great. And Phil, so like say for instance, the sidewalks and the the facade of the buildings, we can all agree that's, like, yeah, I think anybody that drives through there is like, yeah, that's not really debatable. Are you guys going to say, and there are XYZ grants available, or look into these types of grants, or is it just sort of like we've identified the issue in terms of solving that and funding it? That's really up to you guys. Meaning us. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That will be part of each of those sort of project sheets or project profiles, will be to identify potential funding sources.
Okay.
Part of what DHCD was hoping to do through this survey and the data they've asked us to collect is to get a sense across the 120 communities, where are the areas of biggest need, to help them then anticipate that in terms of funding levels for some of their existing programs, and also to see if there is, a shared need for a type of program that maybe either doesn't exist today or doesn't quite address the needs that were identified. So hopefully, this information that, we are adding to the other 120 communities that are participating in this can help DHCD and other state agencies, kind of align their funding to help respond to this, because, this is a planning grant, so it's not focused on actually doing any of these projects. It's the framework within which those projects will happen. But a very important part of it is to set the communities up to be able to apply for funding successfully, to be able to implement them as the next step.
Okay, great, thanks. Did anybody else have any other questions? I'm not saying stop, I'm just saying at this point, Phil. Okay, great.
So this, I think, is one of the last questions. About 57% of the respondents were interested in receiving some kind of assistance, with the most in the categories of either shared marketing and advertising or low-cost financing for purchasing property in the district. Setting up, an online presence was sort of the next highest one. So those are some areas where some of the respondents, are interested in participating in some type of program or having support to do that. So again, that kind of helps us think about potential projects and recommendations and how we might structure those. So the rest of this handout I won't go through, but this is just talking about kind of the profile of the respondents. Just highlight most of them rent their space. Largest majority was, kind of mid-sized, 6 to 10 employees. And you had a few that were in food service and accommodation, a few in the personal service categories, and you see the rest here. So that was kind of the breakdown of the business survey responses that we have so far.
And Phil, is this something that and if you did already make this available, I'm sorry, but can you make that available to the committee vis-a-vis Deb, so that we could all take a look at that afterwards? And
yes,
okay.
We can definitely share that.
I do have it, I believe. Yep.
Okay.
Very good. So that is the recap of the survey. Some of the other information that DHCD asked us to collect, and this was again kind of uniform across all the communities. Some of it was just kind of general statistics in terms of, population characteristics, business characteristics, things like that. These are also resources that I can share with you, but we were able to pull a kind of a business locator report from one of the information providers that we use that identified 52 businesses in the study area, and it lists them all by name and number of employees. So that, it could be a really interesting resource that we will share with you.
And do you know where that info comes from? Is it from the state or from Like what database are you using, or like is it some compilation of different databases? And
It's a couple of different ones. We use, it's called Esri Business Analyst, which is kind of Esri is an international organization that does kind of demographic and business data collection and analysis, pretty much any location you could imagine. And so they've pulled their data for that list, looking at the data source here, and it's another company called Data Axle, which does business location data. And then Esri makes some projections as well. So it's those two data sources. I can't say based on this where Data Axle gets that information from, but looking through the list of businesses there, I recognize a number of the names from the site walk that Deb and Jim and I did a month or two ago. So, that is, I think, a useful list of starting points in terms of who is in the district today.
okay, cool, thanks.
You're welcome. And then the other thing that I'll just mention briefly, and this will be part of that public presentation on June 1st, they also asked us to kind of rate and grade the physical environment of the study area. And they gave us kind of a set of measurement criterias to take a look at, sidewalks, street trees and benches, street lighting, wayfinding and signage, and roadbed and crosswalks within the public realm. And then on the private side, to evaluate the building and storefront facades, the storefront lighting, the awnings and business signage related to companies in the study area, and then the windows and outdoor dining. So these were the categories they asked us to rate. And, for the most part, I don't think anyone would be surprised. The rating, they were A, B, C, or F in terms of the rating levels. And a lot of those categories in the study area today rated as either C's or F's, in the sense that, there really is no outdoor display areas around the commuter rail station today. There really isn't any storefront lighting for the most part there, because it's not really, the businesses that are there are more oriented towards kind of service businesses going out and doing their work elsewhere. It's not so much people coming to the district to shop and to dine, with a couple of exceptions. As we mentioned, there's not really much of a sidewalk network there, so that rated pretty lowly. But this helps kind of identify what the needs are, which, are apparent to anybody who goes through there today, but just kind of quantifies it in a different way, and will help, again, help inform these project recommendations and prioritize, with limited resources and the limited, administrative capacity to manage these programs, where can we focus the efforts for the most impact? So we'll have some more information on that as part of that public presentation.
Okay.
So I think those were the big things. Deb, was there anything else that you wanted me to cover in terms of sort of background and where we're at right now?
No, probably just because did you get me anything to publicize for the outreach meeting? Were you going to give me something?
Yes, I have a flyer that if I haven't sent, I will send it to you. But yes, we'll have a flyer, kind of a PDF flyer that can be sent out to any email lists, posted online. That'll just kind of explain, very briefly what the program is. And, we're having a meeting to learn more about it, and we want to hear from you.
Okay. Yeah. And I have to figure out the virtual piece of that, how I'm going to do that. But yeah, that's all. Just like what we can expect from that meeting, maybe, which is June 1st at 7:00.
So for that meeting, you're envisioning public officials?
So I
businesses?
asked to be like piggyback off of the selectmen's meeting, and actually be on the selectmen's agenda. The problem I'm thinking of after the fact is I don't want to publicize the link, right? The Zoom link and of course it'll be the selectmen's agenda link, and we might have people coming on early and be in the middle of your meeting. So I just have to figure out the virtual piece of it. But yes, because I would like the selectmen's, and I don't know, Phil, if you know that Laura is a select woman, selectmen there as, you know, supporting all of this, and also just to hear what people have to say about the Main Street, right? And I'm hoping to get maybe the planning board and maybe this economic development committee there as well, just to hear what people want to see. It's because it's open to everybody. It's going to be open to all businesses and all residents.
Hey, Deb, what about ZBA? Because I feel like they're going to really have a role. And I have had, you know, just sort of very casual conversation with Bill Cushing, who's the chair of ZBA, talking about this initiative and talking about what has come up, which is, look, we know that we've got some zoning bylaws, and so I see that,
Absolutely.
you
I'll
know, as
invite
like,
them all.
yeah, like a
Yeah.
cooperative planning slash ZBA, you know, all hands on deck, land use board type of thing, because
Right.
they all have different perspectives. So
Right. And I think it's, you know, we've been talking about this with economic development, right? Trying to sort of do some outreach. So because we sort of have to do this outreach with this grant program, I thought, as many people who want to show interest, I just think the more people we have that can get behind something like this, you know, Main Street is our big problem. Like, it's just been a lingering problem that we're ready to move off. And
now, are you sure you want to do it after the selectmen's meeting? Because I mean, our meetings can run quite late, and I'm just thinking that could be a deterrent to. I mean, I appreciate that you're probably trying to be judicious with the selectmen's time, but I think most of them would be, you know, here I am speaking for them, even though I haven't discussed it, but I think most of them probably wouldn't have a problem on a one-off. It's not like we're constantly meeting and asking them to meet. And I just would want to make sure that it's at a time that's going to be, you know, appealing to everybody.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I asked to be put on the agenda for 7 p.m. and it's from 7 to 8, and I was told okay. So we can work out the logistics, but we need to work them
Okay.
out quickly because I want to be able to put this out there to Facebook and stuff. So I've got to figure out and it has to be no later than June 1st. Like, it has to be earlier than that. We can't, because we already asked to push it. They wanted it done by the end of May, and we asked if we could do it June 1st, because that was the next available selectmen's meeting, other than tomorrow, which was a full agenda.
Well,
So,
tomorrow's reorganization, the first meeting after the, you know,
yeah,
election. It's quite a full
right.
agenda.
So,
Yeah.
and we didn't have enough time anyways to really get it out there, right? Like me, I can't get it out there. You know, we got to set this stuff up. I need a little bit of time. So I'm
So
open to
what's our,
anything, but
okay, that's fine. If you know, you talk to Kenny and he said that, you know, 7 o'clock was going to work on the first,
and
then
I will
yeah.
try to work that out and look at it again tomorrow. I don't know if I, you know, who I can talk to about that, but I'll get it squared away, because like I said, I'm going to have to use 2 different Zoom links, because I don't want people jumping in 15 minutes early and being at the tail end of your meeting. So
We
I'll
also
just
don't
let you,
want Zoom bombing, which I have
right,
had
right.
happen, which was not pretty. So yeah, so we don't, and so I think we really need to have a very comprehensive PR plan to get this out. You know,
Right.
cable, the sign out in front of town hall, you know, Facebook,
Facebook.
the town website, the express. I am more than glad to help with these things. I'm not just adding to your, you know.
Right. Well, you could do it through your business network, I'm hoping.
I can also, yep, I will send it. I will work with Laura Willis and have it sent to the Hanson Business Network emails. Although I will say 50-50 response on that. But I do think we've got the Hanson Business Network Facebook page we can use to put that out there. You know, so we've got a lot of avenues, and I think we need to use all of them, because this is just going to be better if we get a cross section and cross pollination of feedback. So
yeah, and the fact that they hear we're trying to do something down there, I think we know always, you know, will help a little bit now that we're beyond town meeting and all of that.
life beyond town meeting.
Okay.
So, okay, so that sounds good. So Phil, I think you sent it to us in the chat, and I was that the flyer? I didn't actually open it up.
That's a link to the
Oh,
DHCD
got it.
program
Yep.
website for
Okay.
this. So there's more information there
Okay.
if you are interested. And I will send Deb the flyer to you right after this meeting.
Right, and I'll let you know what, if we have to change it, time or whatever.
Yes,
keep
yeah.
you up.
Mm-hmm.
But I will be on top of that ASAP.
And Deb, I think tomorrow night we're talking about whether we might start holding meetings in person, because a lot gets lost when it's all remote.
Mhm.
So just keep that, in the back of your mind that we may actually be meeting in person. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to do this in person,
I
but
don't want to do it in person.
know.
We're hoping to, and I think we'll get more of an audience not in person.
okay.
To some extent, right? I think at a future later date for the Economic Development Committee itself, we'll be able to do maybe an in-person towards the, say September or whatever. But for now, given the constraints and stuff, I think it's best to do it virtual, because we'll get some of these business owners, that will jump on, but if
Yep.
they've worked all day, they're not coming out for a meeting.
I know the types. Yep.
Yeah. I know myself, sometimes I don't feel like doing it.
Okay.
That's it.
And guys, Jim, Dan, any questions for Phil?
Phil, are we moved? Phil and Deb, are we meeting again this week?
I can't hear you, Jim.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
A little bit better. Yeah.
So,
I just want to check, Deb and Phil, are we meeting this week?
I don't think we were planned to meet this week. Let me look at my calendar. Actually, yeah, I do, but I don't know that I'm going to make that. Is there something you need, Jim?
No.
Or you would just want to, you just want to make sure you're in the loop?
So Deb, if we need to, reschedule that call for this week, we certainly can. I think we would just check in on meeting prep, preview the data collection that we've done so far, just what I sent on Friday. So if we do need that call, we can just reschedule this week.
Okay. I'll
Okay.
reach out to you.
Okay, yeah, we can do that separately.
Okay.
All
We're
right.
good. Thank you, Phil.
all right.
I appreciate
Thanks
you
so much,
coming
Phil.
on.
And
Absolutely.
you're welcome to stay, although I'm sure you've got other things to do. But we really value the work you've done so far and the partnership, and it's great because it gives us some good feedback that we're at such a preliminary stage as a committee that we're really trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up, and trying to refine that vision, and so this data that you're collecting from both the surveys and then the future event, I think is going to help us. I know it's really COVID related rapid recovery, but I think it also has a broader application, and that's going to really help us a lot. So
it does. The COVID recovery is a part of it, especially for some of the communities that have more, retail and dining in their downtown study areas. But it absolutely is also, it's broader than that to just support businesses and business environments. So I think this is a great opportunity. We're really excited to be working with you here. Looking forward to the meeting on June 1st to hopefully hear from some more people. And I imagine we'll be checking back as we continue through this, just to test those preliminary ideas, hear any other ideas from you, and just really appreciate your perspective and participation in this too.
Thank you so much, Phil. Take care, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you very much. I will have to drop off, but thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Phil. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Bye.
All right. So I did want to just mention that we may have some scheduling. I'm trying to be diplomatic, guys, and it's really just not my strong suit. So we may have some scheduling complications. Deb has tendered her resignation. And of course, she's been playing a very leading role in this initiative. It is being discussed tomorrow night at the Board of Selectmen's meeting as to accepting her resignation and what that might mean. So more to come on that. But just that's why, Jim, I think Deb was a little uncertain about how to answer your question about when we were meeting, because we're going to have to identify if, in fact, we accept Deb's resignation and she goes on her merry way. We're going to have to identify other town resources to help us with this initiative. So, how did I do, Deb, on being diplomatic on that? Hopefully, I did okay.
I'm unmuted. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it is what it
okay.
is.
So it's on our agenda tomorrow night, so it's not like it's some deep dark secret.
Yeah.
So that said, list of project, and I've got a hard stop at 5 o'clock, and I know I had promised you guys that we would commit to a 1 hour meeting anyway. List of projects to prioritize and how to move forward. I don't know, Dan and Jim, just quickly, did you have any updates on the survey situation?
Well, we've been waiting to talk because we can't talk, there's two of us talking becomes a quorum, so.
Okay,
kinda have
so
that- I'd look
so
at-
should we schedule it like just as part of our meeting and just, you know, toss it around
Yeah.
at the next meeting? Then that way we don't have to do this cloak and dagger thing, or,
Yeah, I think we have to.
okay,
Okay, so you want the business surveys and the resident survey. So I believe as we left it was Lisa Green was going to contact Bridgewater State.
she
And,
was.
and I think
She's
she
on
may have.
vacation.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think she may have. So she may have some information for you to help you along next time. So I can, but I'll put that to discuss. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, just discuss the surveys.
You're right. That is what she had said. And then the guide to starting a business in Hanson. I'm not sure really where that falls in the list of priorities. I hesitate to to take on more than what we're going to be able to achieve, but we need to prioritize. So do you guys want to say that this rapid recovery grant is our first priority? And then getting these surveys out to the businesses and residents is our second priority. And then I don't know, what do you want to say is our third priority? I feel like the zoning bylaws is extremely important, but it's going to be long term. These are all sort of going to be happening. They could be happening simultaneously, but some are going to be long view and some are going to be short view. You know, even being the optimistic person I am, but knowing the red tape that happens around zoning bylaw changes, I think that's one that's going to take quite a bit of effort, well worth it, and it's been needed for years, long before this group ever got together. But I think we're going to need to meet with the other folks. So, Deb, is that something that we could possibly do? Is invite maybe the chair from planning and then the chair from ZBA and just kind of talk to them about where we're at. You know, not that we have specifics, but just that we're looking at this and, you know, have they had things that during the ordinary course of having meetings that they've thought, you know, it's really dumb, our bylaw doesn't allow for this, or it requires that people, you know.
I certainly can invite them. I mean, a couple things. So the local rapid recovery grant is going to look at zoning, right? That was one of the last points I made, to change the zoning to induce business down there. Also, the MBTA station and the new laws that came out, H250, is going to require us to have certain zoning around the MBTA station, but they haven't come out with guidelines yet. So it's sort of like, we know this needs to be done, but it's trying to get it in an order that makes sense, right? And I almost
Right.
want to say, let the local rapid recovery guy finish out his report, and see what he has to say, and maybe we'll have guidelines from the state by then, and then we take that and this piece. And the other thing is, absolutely, that type of a zoning bylaw change is something that you could get technical assistance from OCPC on, right? So just keep that all in the back of your mind when
Okay.
you're ready. They come out in December and ask for what you want for grant money. That's certainly something that they could do and get and get the town what they need so think about that. But yeah, we can invite the chair of both of the boards if you would like to pick their brain.
Well, I don't want to pull the trigger too early. If you think we should
Yeah, I
wait
think it's
until
a
we
little
hear.
early. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, what do you think? Jim, thoughts on priorities here?
I think the priorities as you discussed them are good. I think we do need to have the conversation with the planning board and the zoning bylaw group so we can start thinking about it. So I think we got to have that front end, get to know and start conversations. But I think you're right, long term. The only one I would ask the question to the group is um, the guide for starting a business in Hanson. Do you think that's something that really falls on to us? Or do you think that's something that falls on to the business organization in town? Well, we can support them, but it's them trying to bring in more members and adding value to themselves.
I mean, I think, Deb, is that something that you think?
It's probably something that I would do myself, right? I think I've actually started it if I can find it in my stuff. I just thought it would be, I'm hoping maybe too with this planning grant. I mean, this planning grant is for planning, and one of the things I wanted
Right.
was a digitalization footprint. How do you become digitalized if you're not, right? So maybe we can put a pamphlet together that walks them through that process, and well, if I'm here, I could fill in the blanks. But I think Whitman has one. I mean, we could probably copy one, copy the general stuff. It's just something probably the town planner could do. Um,
Okay, yeah, because I think, Deb, would it be possible to just collect up a couple of examples from like other towns? Because I think, Jim, I would totally agree that it would be a Hanson Business Network thing. It depends on how we're defining starting a business. If we're talking about, figuring out your business plan and, yada, yada, all, sort of like if you actually are setting up and the way I read this was a business in Hanson. So I thought it focused a little bit more on what the Hanson regulations are
right.
for businesses. That's the way I read it, but I'd say there is a lack of clarity in the way that bullet's written. So
Okay.
it's certainly subject to interpretation, but I see where Jim was coming on that because if it was was like, how do you tell somebody who says, hey, I think I want to open up a business in not just in Hanson, but like I want to open up a business and then it happens to be in Hanson.
Right. It was my intent was more based on Hanson itself. Like first you have to go to the building department and you have to
Okay,
pull
yeah.
this permit, and second you got to go to the ZBA and get that permit. You got to go to the clerk's office and get that permit. That was my intent on it, so I apologize if it wasn't clear, but that was sort of just how do you maneuver a permit in Hanson, what departments, because they're different and it's different in different towns. I've worked in not worked for towns, but I've had to apply for permits in many towns, and it's just different for each
Yeah,
town. So I thought,
definitely.
well, this will be easier if we can get it online, and they know, okay, step one is I've got to go to the clerk first and get a business permit. And then from there, I go to the ZBA or vice versa or whatever. That was my thought process to make it a little bit easier for people who don't know how to maneuver the process in the town hall. That's all. And
Okay.
of course, all of this is going to change. I mean, we're talking about implementing online permitting, right? So
Hmm.
it will change. So maybe that's something too that we sort of start and wait until we have some of this stuff in place.
And as far as the forums with the business network or with Cutler Brady, we can really make those happen whenever you guys think the timing is right.
Mm,
Cutler and Brady are very responsive, have been very, very supportive of small businesses and of Hanson in getting us things. So really just let me know. We'll reach out. I would, in my mind, I'm thinking this rapid recovery grant and gathering all that information, that's like our first priority. And then I think that's going to drive a lot of what our next steps end up being. So I almost don't want to absolutely say, well, this is it, but similar to what you said, Deb, like Do I think that they're going to end up coming up with recommendations for zoning bylaw changes? Absolutely. But we do need to have a conversation, kind of to queue it up with planning and ZBA to say like, hey, as you guys are looking at the year ahead, you're reorganizing and everything because it's that time of the year. Can you just kind of pencil us in as something that you're going to be working with us on this? I mean, obviously, I know Kevin is on planning, you're with planning. Hopefully you guys will, communicate that to them. And just reach out to ZBA and just queue it up. I just want to make sure that we are being collaborative with all of the right stakeholders and that we're getting their vantage point on this. I don't want to, be walking down some primrose path and have somebody say, well, geez, thanks. You guys didn't even bother to ask me for my expertise. So,
Okay.
so yeah. Thoughts on that?
No, I agree 100%, Laura, with you and Jim on those points. And I think we're not ready to pull the trigger on anything yet, but just having those conversations with the planning board and those other groups and just let them know, hey, this is who we are. We want to work together moving down the line when those times come. So at least they're ready and waiting. And also we can see maybe ask them questions on where their thought processes are and what things they might already have in the work. So I think that's beneficial for everybody.
I can tell you in my very quick conversation I had with, with Bill Cushing, he was like, oh yeah, we need an overhaul. He's like this, like he had like 5 or 6 things right off the top of his head that he thought were kind of, impediments for businesses. But they're sort of forced to, as the ZBA to have people comply with them, but he recognized they weren't very convenient. So, and I'm sure planning is the same thing because they're dealing with this stuff all the time. So, okay,
So I will
so
invite them. You just, if you want them the next meeting, I'll put it on the agenda and make sure it gets done. I'm going to invite them to that outreach as well when we decide what that's going to be.
definitely. And Deb, I know it sounds a little weird, but maybe, I mean, I would rather be over inclusive and people can deal themselves out if they don't need to be part of it. But like I was thinking even like, Phil Clemens and conservation, because we know that like septic is always a real issue. And why is it an issue? Because there are wetlands, and who oversees the wetland stuff? It's conservation. So, I even like maybe Gil and the Board of Health, because again, we get into septic. It always comes back to septic for everything here. So, I think, and it doesn't have to be the full boards because that could maybe get unwieldy, but definitely have a representative from each one of the boards that's going to be able to share their board's perspective, listen, and then bring it back and keep that dialogue going. So I'd very much like to have that. And also, Deb, I'm hoping that you can get like Lee Gamache. I mean, she's our assessor. Her perspective is invaluable on things. And she often has these like a vantage point that she comes from that I'm like, oh, I never would have thought of it that way,
She's good.
Yeah. So if we can, if we could perhaps,
let me just mention to you, because this has come up and why I have been turned down for grants in the past. When I've asked, they said because they don't feel like sometimes Hanson can carry through, right? So when you have these grants and Phil's going to be there, the more support you can show, the better it's going to be for the town. It's going to look better. Like, hey, yeah, they're all interested, all the boards, or like you say, a representative. So I will just put that out there for you, that it's very important that people get involved in the grants, because it does lend itself to more grants down the road. If they say, hey, yeah, Hanson is passionate about this MBTA area and they really want to move the needle.
Okay,
So
that's good feedback. Okay, future meeting, I guess our next meeting will be with Phil on June 1st. Do we feel that we need one before that time? Which really, we don't have a lot of time, but do we think we need something before then? Okay.
Do we want to meet before then, Laura, and at least just come up with logistics of how that meeting is going to flow?
That's a fair point. And I think a damn good point. So yes, I think that would be great. I'm hoping the way it flows is Deb, take the reins. But if Deb is not here,
I was going to say, huh? Yeah.
we are really going to need to figure that out.
Well, you see that Phil is a good speaker and he likes to speak. Phil, I don't know what his last name is, but he so I think he will run the meeting for you. So so I will try to have it set up, but he should run the meeting and he's going to open it up to suggestions. He wants to know what these people want to see out there as residents and what businesses want to see and what people need. So,
but should we have a little prep meeting with him just
well,
so
I was
that,
thinking maybe you should have a prep meeting prior to, but Laura, that's going to conflict with you and selectmen. So,
yeah. So I think to your point, Dan, I really don't want to have this all hands on deck. We've invited the entire world and we don't have our act together at the meeting. I really don't want that to happen. So I'd rather sort of have everybody know roles and responsibilities and who's going to be controlling the screen, even if it's just a 15, 20-minute little, layup. I'd just like to kind of have that. So do you think we could arrange something with Phil?
He's very open. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe the Monday before we're going to, or is that Memorial Day? I don't know.
Yeah. The Monday is the Memorial Day. So it would have to,
all right.
So maybe you want to do it on
Monday?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be a Monday. No.
Just something quick so we can set an agenda where whether it's Deborah or somebody else, like the agenda's there, whoever's running it, we're all working off the same playbook.
What can you guys speak to your availability for next, I don't know, so any time next week, like Monday,
I
Wednesday?
can pretty much work around anything, so it's up to you guys.
All right, Jim, what's your situation?
Monday, this time I'm good. Yeah, I'm good most afternoons except Friday.
Okay, and Kev, what's your situation?
I'm pretty open to any day. The earlier time I was just listening, so I heard mostly everything. I just didn't have the availability to make any comments.
Oh yeah, no worries. And I'm sorry for scheduling it earlier. That won't be a regular habit. So
any time is really fine with me too.
All right, Deb, maybe could we plan on doing it the 24th?
So I was going to tell you that is my last day officially,
Oh,
so I
well.
will be here. So it
Okay.
might work that at least I can transition you, make sure you're ready to go for this meeting if I'm not going to be there. So I don't mind that, you know what I mean, to make sure you guys have whatever you need.
Okay, yeah, then let's try to plan on the 24th if that's amenable to everybody else. And may we do that at 5 p.m.?
Yep, I have planning board at 6:30, but as long as we're done, it should be short, you said, so I'll be fine with that.
Yeah, I would literally is like, who's going to say what? What's Phil going to do? What's he going to say? Yada,
And I'll get
yada.
with Phil and ask him to, maybe he's going to do a PowerPoint. I don't know, but I'll find out from him so that I'll ask him to join the meeting.
And if he could send an agenda to us in advance of what he's planning on talking about, that would be super helpful. In addition to any, any kind of a presentation he's going to do, PowerPoint or information he's going to share. I just don't want us to be sitting there in amazement, with everybody else for the first time hearing things. So, which I don't think you'd do, but just in case. All right, so the 24th at 5 p.m. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Oh, somebody needs to motion it.
Make a motion to adjourn
Great.
till June 20. What was it? I'm sorry, June.
May
24th.
All right, May 24th.
Okay, and Dan seconded it. All in favor? Jim? Dan?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
And Laura, I'm an aye. All right, great. Thank you, guys. Talk to you
Right.
soon.
Thank
All right,
you.
bye.
Bye-bye. Find out what I'm doing here.